Her face twisted painfully, mangling her teeth into sharp tusks and her ears 4 times their natural size. Her mouth was forced open by the sudden bones protruding from her gums. Miriam's parents screamed in reaction to this rugged animal that was once her teenage daughter as she frantically touched her new face. Deep down, something in Miriam knew that something like this could have happened, for the phenomenon was too good to be true. Giving humans nanobots in their bloodstream to secrete animal DNA that would supposedly help their bodies combat the worsening climate? Her father received an emergency alert on their screen in their living room, glancing at the headline that read, "Breaking News. Victims suffering extensive physical damage as a result of new antimopropazine." Miriam grew up in a small town named Talon Hill in Utah. She was surrounded by friends and family, and her parents were very wealthy, owning solar panels just outside the mountains. Her best friend, Whitney, was a completely opposing force to hers. Whitney came from a large family who unsuspectingly struggled to put food on the table most nights, but she was popular at school. Miriam was contently reserved. Whitney believed in the government's efforts to combat climate change, while Miriam didn't, not even her family's business. "So, they're making you get it, the new medication?" Whitney asked as she brushed her hair in Miriam's mirror. "I mean, it might not be all bad. Just because you don't think it'll work doesn't mean that it won't." "I don't know, I just think it sounds creepy," Miriam said to Whitney as she sat on her bed, biting her fingernails. "I mean, just think about it. They're putting microtechnology in our bloodstreams to supposedly help our bodies regulate temperature. That sounds kind of weird. They can't even prove that it works before making us submit to needles in our arms and antlers on our heads." Whitney gave Miriam a look. "Now, Miriam, you know I'd kill to have an opportunity like this, right? I mean, your parents are just trying to look out for you." "No, they're not," Miriam shot back. "They just want the public to like them more because of their business." The new medication, antimopropazine, had been composed of various animal DNA, coming from animals that can survive in extreme temperatures. Once entering the bloodstream, these nanobots would secrete this DNA, rewriting the regular human DNA to give humans these physical capabilities that would help them regulate their body temperature. Throughout the week, starting with those most wealthy, medical facilities across the nation began to administer this treatment. All feedback had been positive. The wealthy called it the cure of 2056, as it was easier to stand the heat now. As Miriam's family headed their way to the medical facility to receive their treatment, Miriam couldn't stop thinking about all the things that could go wrong with this, all the negative things that could go wrong. She tried to think of anything that would get her out of it. Her mother began to apply her signature pink lipstick in the car. "Now, Miriam, when they go to deliver your dose, you are not to refuse yourself." She gave Miriam an assertive look. "You may not thank me now, but you'll thank me later. You're a teenager, you just don't understand." "Bet I won't be thanking you when I grow claws," Miriam shot back, causing her mother to give her father a look. "Don't argue with her, Evelyn," her father said to her mother. Suddenly, the driver hit a bump in the road, almost causing her mother to smudge her application. She capped her lipstick, and she huffed. "Miriam, there have been no reported signs of anyone growing teeth or claws or, I don't know." She waved her hand sporadically in the air. "Crazy appendages." After receiving the treatment, Miriam couldn't stop thinking about what she'd just done. She kept glancing down at the bandage hugging her arm, hugging her vein, now coated in some form of animal DNA and whatever else. Whenever they arrived at home, her parents kept raving about the efficiency of the product and how the heat wasn't so unbearable outside now. Whitney visited their house that night, expressing that her family had received an appointment to receive the nanobots the next week. Miriam congratulated her, but she still felt uneasy about the whole thing. After Whitney left, she began to experience lightheadedness and become nauseous. She began to run down the stairs to go tell her parents about this when she covered her mouth. A sudden tingling started coming from her gums, soon turning into immense pain and causing her to scream. That's when her parents screamed at the sight of her. The emergency screen in their living room showed the many cases of animal conversion happening across the nation. Women had grown fur and tusks and even scales. Children had grown extra fingers, and men, after further observation, growing extra internal organs. What would this mean for the future of America? The only thoughts that Miriam could compile through her screams were in fear for the general public. How would a previously perfect daughter now survive with animal attributes? Her parents' screams were now indiscernible as her giant ears increased her sense of hearing, overstimulating her. She passed out on the floor, and that's when the paramedics picked her up. She began to realize that she was not herself anymore, that she was now just one of the government's experiments.